Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pails, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I call the John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
Sherrod.
Dude, I'm loving the intro, man.
Loving the intro. Loving the fight by the Pistons tonight, but I'm loving the result a little bit more. The Celtics they avoid embarrassment, they avoid a disaster, and they pull off an overtime win against the now, was it 28 games in a row losing streak Detroit Pistons?
28 and counting, Jimmy. 28 and counting.
128 to 122. The Celtics are victorious tonight at the TD Garden. They remain undefeated at home just by the skin of their teeth. Sherrod Blaklely here with us. I am Jimmy Toscano. Josue Pavon is at the Garden. Bobby Manning is at the Garden. They're probably talking to
it better not be Luke
as we speak. Yes, it's not going to be Luke tonight. I can guarantee you that. You don't want to be in the Pistons locker room again tonight, but maybe they'll sneak in there, and at the very least, they'll talk to Monty Williams maybe and just get an idea of where that team's at mentally. It's going to be pretty tough for that Pistons teams, but they're old news now, come and gone. Just another W for the Celtics in that column. But Sherrod, a tale of two halves. I mean, this was ugly in many cases tonight for the Celtics to start off. It was one of those games where, like, if these guys don't start hitting a three, they're not only going to lose, they're going to get their doors blown off. They took a 19-point deficit going into halftime on just abysmal shooting from three, sloppy turnovers. Tatum looked like he wasn't on the same page. Derek White was not himself out there in the first half. I gotta make one thing clear. I'm talking about red sneaker Derek White. So red sneaker Derek White in the first half, Sherrod, was a completely different player than white and blue sneaker Derek White in the second half. I don't know what were in those sneakers, but burn the red ones, keep the white and blue ones, and just keep it rolling.
Make a shot. Forget about your sneakers. Forget about your wristbands. Forget about your hair.
It's all in the sneakers.
Dude, this was a hot mess, Boston Celtics style. Listen, there are maybe two teams, maybe one or two other teams outside of Detroit that the Celtics could have played this putrid for this long and still found a way to win. First, they were absolute trash in the first half. And no disrespect to Detroit. Detroit was playing pretty good basketball, but they weren't playing good enough basketball to put the Celtics in a 19-point hole or 21-point hole. Actually, the league got up to 21 for Detroit in the first half. That was inexcusable. When you look at the blame pile for this, because, again, the Celtics won and everyone should feel good about that. I don't feel good about them winning because they did not do this the way it should have been done. Yes, Detroit played a good game, but Detroit leaves this with so much confidence because they're thinking, if we just play like this for the rest of the season, we're probably going to win a lot of games. When you're playing the best team in the NBA and you have lost 27 in a row, you should walk out of that building thinking like, damn, we just got our asses kicked by the best team in the NBA. That is not what Detroit is feeling right now. They're feeling this is yet another game they gave away. And
you think so?
Oh, I absolutely think so. Detroit is feeling much better about themselves after this game than they would have if Boston would have came out and absolutely smashed them. Because at that point,
you mean they're feeling better or worse? They are.
What's that?
You're saying the Pistons are feeling better or worse right now than
they're feeling better.
Okay.
They're feeling better than they would have if Boston would have handled this the way the best team in the NBA should handle it. And I don't feel good at all about this win if I'm the Celtics, particularly if I'm Jason Tatum. You had a great second half. Your whole team had a great second half. But part of the reason why you kind of sucked in the first half was because you kind of weren't very good. Right. And you didn't, and there's no Jaylen Brown scapegoat. We can't put Jaylen Brown in this one. Not tonight. This was on Tatum. Tatum needs to be better for longer. He was very good in the second half, but damn, you can't have these kind of games when a key player is missing and you're the best player and you're available. He's got to be better than this.
Yeah, and I think whatever happened at halftime, whether it was something Mazzulla said or something that the Celtics just snapped into it, they did change the way things were going. And I'll give Tatum credit for that. He did come around in the second half. White came around. Porzingis had a great game.
Yes.
Second half. Again, we're talking about second halves here, but overall, he was somebody that was just consistent out there. The Celtics did get, I think they got outworked in a lot of cases. They got out rebounded. But again, that second half, they kind of snapped out of it. To your point, Sherrod, Tatum, not a complete game. He ends with a great stat line. I mean, as he typically does. Was it 31 points? Let's see, we got the whole thing here. 31 points.
10 assists, I think.
7 rebounds. I think he might have had eight rebounds, but 10 assists. I think he had 5 steals.
Right.
Again, 31 points on 31 shots. Not an efficient game. 2 of 11 from 3. Missed the shot at the end of regulation. Thought he had a good look. Just, came up a little short on that to send it to overtime there. But of course, you want more consistency out of Tatum, and especially like you said, with Jaylen Brown out tonight, it's a no-brainer on who the go-to guy is. Is it just obvious that he's going to get the last shot, Sherrod, regardless?
It shouldn't be, though.
Even if Jalen's in there?
It shouldn't be, Jimmy, because I think Joe does a lot of good things, and he's gotten better at a lot of things. But the one thing that I wish, if there's one thing he could take from Brad that I wish he would, is be more unpredictable in late clock end of game situations. Remember how Brad would draw up plays for like Jeff Green and for Evan Turner.
Jeff Green shout out. Wow.
Yeah, for guys who weren't the go-to players on the team, but they were being positions to make plays in late game situations. Why can't we see something like that for Derek White? Why can't we see something like that for Drew Holiday? Why can't we see something like that for Porzingis? Guys who have done enough in this league to where they've earned the right to have their number called for the final shot of the game. And if you're a defense, you're looking for Tatum. Your focus is on Tatum, and that means you're probably sleeping a little bit on some of those other guys around him. I just wish Joe would be a little bit more creative in those end of game situations, and don't put all your eggs in the Tatum basket when you need a bucket to go down in the last second, particularly in a situation where worst case scenario is you're going to overtime. To me, that's the time when you try to call something for someone else, because again, the worst thing that can happen is you just play another 5 minutes. You're not going to lose the game in that particular play. And if Tatum has a wide open 3, that's one thing, but that never happens in those situations. So why wouldn't you try to call something or create a play that opens things up for someone else?
We're not at the point where no one's screaming, no, don't shoot it when Tatum has the ball.
Right.
But I can tell you what, if the ball ended up in this guy's hands, Derek All-Star White, thank you, Amit, for the graphic here. I don't think anyone would have an issue with Derek White taking any shot he wants right now. I mean, he was on fire in the second half of this game. Looked like the Derek White we've seen for the last season plus now. And a lot of people think that Derek White just might be the overall best player on the Celtics. And I will say this: John Zanis in our group chat has been starting that movement, I think, where he's just saying Derek White's your best player. And you know what? Every game that occurs, it's less and less crazy.
Well, think about this, Jimmy. In this particular game, they began that fourth quarter stretch.
Thank you, Curdy.
They began that fourth quarter stretch with Tatum on the bench, with Porzingis on the bench, but Derek White was in there. Who got them back the lead? It was Derek White. He scored like a first 5 or 6 points in a row. Derek White has gone from being just a nice glue guy to the damn artwork. He's no longer the glue. He's the damn artwork itself. And it's great to see. But the challenge he's going to have being an all-star is he's going to have to be voted in by the coaches, because fans damn sure aren't going to vote him in. He's going to have to continue to basically torch teams in the East so that when they get time to thinking, okay, who's going to be my reserve guard, he'll come to mind. But the one thing that I think will help his case is the Celtics have to put more distance between themselves and the rest of the East, because at that point you can start justifying having 3 and 4 guys from one team. If you've got like a 4 or 5 game lead,
that's a good point.
That's such, and when you look at the teams that get like 3 and 4 all-stars, that 9 times out of 10 is what separates them from everyone else, is they have this huge margin of wins over the next best team. That's what the Celtics are going to have to do if Derek White is going to have any shot of being an all-star. Because if you go by simply his numbers, he's borderline in the conversation. If you go by his impact on winning, he definitely should be an all-star. And the only way you can really amplify that part of what he brings to the table is you've got to win a lot of games and put yourself in position where you are head and shoulders better than everyone in the East. And because of that, you've earned the right to have 3 and potentially 4 all-stars.
I'm going to say what a lot of people say to me all the time. And this isn't, if you don't think Derek White's an all-star, you don't know ball. And that's what people tell me. Jimmy, you don't know ball. And maybe they're right. Maybe I don't know ball. But I know Derek White is an all-star this year based on what I've seen. And of course, the Sherrod, I mean, you're right. He's not a household name yet. He's not the flashiest guy. He's not gonna be filling up SportsCenter top 10, but he makes the right plays out there almost all the time. Like you said, he's beyond the glue guy of this team. He's their most consistent player. And if you're their most consistent player and you're the best team in the league, like you said, they probably need to maybe win a few more and distance themselves from the rest of the pack before that all-star break occurs. But you can't tell me if you're if you're a coach or an assistant coach or anybody involved in the NBA, you can't tell me you watch the NBA and not notice how Derek White is affecting things out there for the Boston Celtics. You just can't tell me that.
No, it's so obvious, particularly when you start looking at their games and you start seeing how the highlights, and when you start going through the highlights, the real highlights, not just the ones where Tatum is dunking on somebody, but the highlights that actually impact winning.
He says it right here. We're just
exactly.
He's calming. He's a calming presence.
He is. He's a calming presence, but he's a baller. I mean, Derek White is slowly becoming one of my favorites. They got rid of my Binky and Marcus Smart. They got rid of him, but Derek White is starting to become my Marcus Smart 2.0, the guy that I absolutely love to see play. Because the thing that I love
is he making you forget Marcus?
No one will ever make me forget Marcus. Happy holidays, by the way, to all those folks out there for Marcus Smart. That's my guy.
There you go. Yeah, Marcus Smart's back. He's back, everybody.
And Memphis is a better team with him and Ja. That's
another
story.
Big and there, but yes.
Yes, that's ampersand. Ampersand Ja. Yeah. But Derek White, he just does all the smart things you want a basketball player to do. And he makes big shots. And the thing about it, when he's making big shots, when he misses a bunny like he did in the first half of this game, which to me, I couldn't believe he missed that layup. He literally comes down the middle of the lane and just blew a layup. He doesn't get rattled or emotionally deranged or detached. Whenever he does something really good or really bad, he stays in the moment. And when that moment comes, that moment passes, he moves on to the next play.
Mm-hmm.
He is, I mean, as Easy said, he's very calming influence, very cerebral player. And guys like that, you need a guy or two like that on your squad to win a championship. You need a guy who has like really, really, really high level talent and skills and intellect, but doesn't get himself emotionally, frankly, off kilter, depending on how the game is going. So Derek White, I mean, they're going to have, at some point down the road, they're going to have to make some really tough decisions with this roster. But I can't imagine Derek White being on another roster in the next 4 or 5 years. I can't say. I honestly believe Brad Stevens will find a way to keep him.
Oh, well, I mean, Brad, this is Brad Stevens. Like, this is his guy, right? I mean, Brad Stevens was the person who made that trade to bring him over here. And there was a lot of criticism about it. I'm not going to say from who, me, John. But in our defense, again, it was not a great start to Derek White's Celtics career in his after the deadline to finish the season. But he's completely more than redeemed himself. I think he's even better. There's going to be some people that said, I knew he was this good. I knew he was this good. Listen, I don't think anyone knew Derek White was this good. Maybe Derek White knew it. Maybe Derek White's dad knew it. But I don't know if anyone else thought that we were going to get this level. And Sherrod, he's really going to make it difficult for the Celtics and for Wick and for Brad they're going to have, there's only so much money. The NBA is not designed like Major League Baseball, unfortunately, where you can just go out there and be the Dodgers, right? And delay the payments 10 years and just sign whoever the hell you want. So they're going to have to obviously they're going to re-sign Tatum. They've got Tatum. They've got Brown. Derek White is playing like a damn max player right now too. So, and they've got Porzingis. They've got Holiday. So this window, enjoy this, folks, because this lineup, this roster that you see, it just can't happen for forever, unfortunately.
Right. The only person I know who sort of had a clue that Derek White was going to be really good was Will Hardy, the Utah Jazz coach, former Celtics assistant. Will talked him up like no one I'd talked to before. And I'm listening to Will talk to me about it. I'm thinking like, well, I know that was your boy in San Antonio, but come on, man. He can't be that damn good.
Yeah.
If he was that damn good, why is Pop cutting him loose?
Right.
And so
Fire Pop. Bad decision.
Exactly. He said his point is Derek, where the Spurs were and where Derek was in terms of his talent, just wasn't an ideal fit. And Derek would be a perfect fit in Boston, which I was not buying entirely. And then I meet Derek. I'm like, either he's way more talented than he's letting on, or he's not really confident in his game right now.
Right.
And you start watching him play, and it's just like, okay, he might be all right. And then when you start hearing Tatum talk about how we need him to shoot more, and we're telling him to shoot more, and then he says, okay, I need to shoot more. And then you see him, he's not just shooting more, he's actually making shots, which is right. And he's got like real cerebral confidence in his ability to be an impact player. And right now, it's to the point now, like in this game where Tatum was upset at a couple of no calls, Derek was the one trying to calm Tatum down. Mm-hmm. That's something where when you're new to the crew, you're not trying to do that. You're just trying to look, Jason's the best player on the team. I'm not telling him to do a damn thing. But now Derek White feels he's got some investment in this team. Yeah, his voice has a different carries a different weight now than it did maybe 6-7 months ago. Yeah. And he understands that, and he's earned that. He's earned that right to be heard. And
he's not proving anything to anybody at this point.
No, I mean he's at that point now where he's just playing his game. When Derek White goes out there and gets you 25 points, draws 2 or 3 charges, gets maybe 3 or 4 deflections, a block shot, couple steals, 6 dimes, 3 or 4 rebounds, it's like we call that Thursday. Some people call that like the highlight of that's Thursday for Derek. So he's at that point, and that's a big part of why this Celtics team is scary good. Because they got guys like him who aren't even like the main attractions, who are giving you main attraction production.
I don't want to make this like Derek White versus Marcus Smart, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but he's kind of like Marcus Smart without the mistakes. Is kind of how I'm seeing him a little bit right now. He's just not making the head scratching plays, not trying to do too much. You'll never say, why is Derek White doing all this right now? Right. You know, he plays within himself, but he's able to affect the game in so many different ways where it doesn't feel like he's overexerting or he's overstepping his bounds. Right. It just feels like he's capable of it. And so you never really get that feeling.
I could see that. But the one thing I will say, just to kind of balance it out a little bit, is just the entry point that Derek White came to Boston versus the entry point that Marcus came is very different. Like Marcus came, and it was, I mean, it's the difference between you're coming into a market and there's nothing but land. There really aren't any houses. You kind of have to figure out your own real estate, where you want to fit in. Whereas Derek White comes in, you've got the Taj Tatum. You've got the, you've got the Jaylen Brown house. You got the Porzingis. It's like you join a team where you're trying to elevate yourself to the status of those guys around you. If you're Derek White, whereas Marcus is like, this is crap. This team isn't very good. I'm Brad Stevens. I'm Brad Stevens' like first guy, and there's no other guys that are really that good here. I mean, Rondo was on his way out, so I mean, there's. You kind of understand why Derek White was a little bit more, I got to figure out how to work with these guys. Whereas Marcus was like, okay, I figured out what I need to do in this league. Oh, damn, now they got this Jason Tatum dude. Now they got this Jaylen Brown dude. I got to figure out how to work with them, but I still want to do what I did when I first came to the team, when there was no one here. And so Marcus became a shot chucker. And made incredible risk defensively. Many of them paid off handsomely for the Celtics. Some of them did not. And so their entry point is different. And I think that has a lot to do with how effective they were in finding their place. But take nothing away from Derek White. He's done a hell of a job in Boston, and he's proven himself that at absolute the worst case scenario is he is in the All-Star conversation. Worst case scenario, he's earned that.
I think so too. I wanna post a comment up here, and I want to see if I can do this without ending the stream. I'm gonna remove both of us so that people can see. There you guys go. I wanted everyone to see that we have included Derek White in the background image now, because there's a lot of people over the past few games have saying, give Derek White his respect, toss his image up there in the background.
Put respect on that D White.
Yeah. So we have officially thrown some respect on his name. He is right. And not only that, Sherrod, he's right in the middle. He's keeping everybody together just like he does in the court. So Derek White, this was a game apparently it was on NBA TV tonight. So I think slowly but surely he's making a little bit of a name for himself. And another guy, Sherrod, on this team that we can't ignore. And I'm going to ask you a question after we talk about Porzingis, but just comment a little bit on what he's not just tonight, but I mean, look at this line: 35 points, 8 rebounds. I thought there were some points in the game where the Celtics could have been a little bit more physical. And it looked like early on, especially, Detroit was getting whatever they wanted at the rim, and they were kind of, throwing some dunks down. And I thought the Celtics could have been a little bit more aggressive. And maybe that's something that Porzingis will see in the film watching back. But what this guy is able to give you on the offensive end is why it was just a no-brainer to take the risk and make the trade for him. And we've talked about it on previous shows. Just this is another trade that just could not have gone any better for the Celtics. You're getting a Porzingis. I mean, the guy was smiling from ear to ear tonight. We get checked out of the game. He just fighting for a rebound off of a missed free throw. He's getting the crowd fired up. I mean, this is a passionate player that at whatever year he is now into his career, 8-10 years in now, however long, he's re-inspired. I think he's just almost found like a second life in basketball, and you can see it out there.
Yeah, you absolutely can. I mean, I think the biggest thing with him is that coming to Boston has allowed him to, in many respects, recalibrate his career. He was a number one. He was a number one or number two option everywhere he was prior to here. And here he comes, he's the number 3. But the thing about him as that number 3 guy is that he still has the ability to be your number 1 or number 2 option. And there are going to be nights, and I've said this before, there are going to be nights where you're going to need him to be your best player on the floor. There are going to be nights where you're going to need him to be that guy that the Knicks went all in on draft night and made him a centerpiece of what they did for a couple of years there. And this is one of those nights. They needed him to be a major player down the stretch with no Jaylen Brown around. They needed him to step up, and he did that. The thing about Porzingis is that the more I watch him play, his ability to absolutely destroy your defense in pick and roll coverage is amazing, because whoever he is doing the pick and roll action with, that player becomes a more dynamic scorer. And as that player becomes more dynamic, you have to worry about the other 3 guys, 2 of whom are probably in the corner just waiting for a catch and shoot opportunity. And one is probably on the wing, usually Al or someone like that, who's waiting for, again, another catch and shoot opportunity. And the stress level that he puts on your defense opens up his game, opens up those around him. And the thing that he did, I thought, really well against Detroit was they kept the ball moving until he got the ball in a situation where he had a 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guy trying to guard him. And poor, Bogdanovic, I mean, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time so many times. It's like, the 7'2" guy catches the ball and you're right behind him. It's like, what the hell are you going to do? You're not going to move him. You're not going to block his shot. You're just going to just sit your ass to get ready to take the ball from out of the net and inbound, because he's about to score on you. And Porzingis was able to do that repeatedly. And when they have matched him up with someone who was a little bit closer in size, he still was able to seek out the mismatch. And that's the beauty of what his game presents. He has the ability to both take advantage of mismatches on his own and find the mismatch elsewhere. Because at 7'2", you're not going to be able to blind him. He's going to see over your defense pretty much anytime and every time he wants to. And so Porzingis is a problem. And again, I think that when you talk about the Celtics, I think you need to start seriously looking at them as a team to have 4 All-Stars this year. They have 4 guys who are in that conversation. And the only way that's going to happen is they're going to have the best record in the NBA, and they're going to have to put a decent amount of distance between them and the next best team. And they're trending in that direction. And again, as we get deeper and closer to that time, the more likely they're to get that 4-player all-star nod than not.
This leads me to my question that I'm gonna ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It would be great if the Celtics could get 4 All-Stars, but let's just say they can't. They can only bring 3. Give me your 3 today.
Tatum, Porzingis,
Okay.
and I'm gonna go with Brown.
Okay. All right. So White's off your list right now. What
it's
does the man
hard.
have to do?
I tell you what he has to do. He has to miss a game and me see what they look like without him.
He's missed a couple.
Yeah, and they didn't suck without him.
Right.
But him and Jalen, it's going to be him or Jalen. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. I think Porzingis is going to be an all-star.
Porzingis is more of a lock than Jalen is?
I do.
Okay.
I the thing about Porzingis,
I didn't know if the missed games were going to hurt him a little bit.
It's not going to help, but what helps him more than anything is the fact of what he does when he is out there playing. I mean, when you're game planning against the Celtics and Porzingis, is going to play, your defense is going to be challenged in a way that very few teams can challenge your defense. Mm-hmm. And I think because Porzingis, to me, he's a guy that if you're an assistant coach or a head coach and you're voting on the All-Star team, Porzingis is a guy that you're thinking about, because Porzingis is a guy that when you're game planning for the Celtics, you think a lot about because of all the different things he can do. Derek White and Jaylen Brown, I think it's a coin toss. I would give Jaylen a slight edge at this point. But man, Derek White is going to make it really hard to just say no to him. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if the voting is so tight that the Jaylen Brown, Derek White vote gets split and someone else slides in to be an all-star. And both of those guys are left on the outside looking in. I could see that scenario happening as well. But the fact that the Celtics have 4 players who are legitimate all-star contenders, I think it says a lot about where they are as a franchise right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's best case scenarios because when they brought in Porzingis, there were a lot of questions on how it would fit and where was he at. What do you think, Sherrod? Just going back to Porzingis for a minute, and it's a great question. I'm going to ask Josue and Bobby the same thing when they get on. If we can, hopefully we can get a chance to talk to them tonight. I'm sure they're hard at work, but it's just tough to get 4. I know it's happened, but it's very, very rare. It has happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it happened when I was in Detroit. It happened when Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and Rip Hamilton all got in, but they had the best record in the NBA.
And that was like the definition of like team ball, like you had the best record, and it was hard. It was like hard to figure out who deserved it more than others because they all just played their role so well, that team. And to this day, it's hard to find a team that really mimics them in terms of they all had. Well, obviously they had all-star caliber players, but they just didn't have those bona fide superstars. Now, Ben Wallace was the best shot blocker in the league, and Rip Hamilton was one of the hardest guys to guard because he would just run nonstop. Chauncey Billups was a top point guard for how many years? And who were we missing? Prince?
No, you had Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and Rip Hamilton.
Rasheed, thank you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean that team, I get it, but I'm going to ask those guys the same question because I just think it's hard. It's what's going to be hard for Derek White too is just the talent at the guard position. Right. It's not a knock on Derek White at all. It's just there are some legit superstars that are going to get Halliburton, like guys like that are just gonna get it. So
Yeah, and you've had some other folks like Golden State, that when they've had like, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Kevin Durant, all those guys got in. So it's definitely possible. But again, the teams that typically get that number are the teams with the best record and arguably the best team from top, certainly top heavy, but typically from top to bottom, the favorites to win it all. So,
all right, Amit's gonna cue us up. Amit's got a clip for us from Joe. The guys are in the we're in the.
What did my boy Gary Washburn do now?
Little Missoula Joe, Missoula Gary back and forth, but I think
they need to have their own show. They need to have their own show.
This might
Joe and Gary.
Amit, are you gonna do this or am I gonna do this?
You just kind of want to get out of the way. You just want to move forward. I mean, all the attention.
I love you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. I love you too, Joe. All the attention on this game. You have basically nothing to gain, everything to lose, and why
would we have nothing to gain from winning a basketball game? We learned more from that game than we did probably playing the 4 games on the West Coast trip.
Okay,
that's an opportunity to build like a mindset and like toughness, and so like to me, it's like we have everything to gain in this. And you talk about the in-season tournament creating something. How about the level of like stress and pressure and anxiety that you felt in that arena today? Like to me, we gained a ton from tonight's game. I thought it was an awesome opportunity, and we said that at halftime of like. We have an opportunity to build toughness, to build a mindset,
Were the players at halftime, obviously they were a little disappointed. Were they upset? Did you have to say a lot? Or because it seemed like the defense ratchet up, everything just changed in the third quarter?
No, I mean, I think they got it out of their system. Like I said, if we were playing against any other team, like I think we got out of their system. Like I said, I showed them the paint points. I showed them the layups we gave up. I showed them the second chance points we gave up, and I showed them each coverage that didn't work because we weren't trying hard. And then I said, let's pick one and let's try hard at it. And then I said, we'll just continue to make plays.
Okay. So there you have it. Well, there's love between the two.
I love you, Gary. I love you too, Joe.
We know Joe likes to say that he loves his players, and now Gary can include himself in that mix.
Exactly.
I know what Gary is saying. He's basically saying, going into this game, they're a 17-point favorite. No one's going to care if you win the way you're supposed to win. Everyone's going to care if you lose. So that's kind of what Gary was getting at. Maybe he didn't get a chance to word it the way he wanted to, but the Celtics made it a game worth learning a lesson, right? Because of the way that they came out. So that's kind of what they can take from is that, they put themselves in that hole. They gave themselves that adversity, and to their credit, they dug themselves out. And there was a lot of pressure that they added on to that. But at the end of the day, when you look at if you're just looking at the win-loss record, beating the worst team in the league isn't going to matter much, but it was the way that they had to do it, which, you can definitely take a lesson out of that.
And I think that's Joe Mazzulla's mindset with this one is just that, look, we didn't play our best game and we put ourselves in a position where, and Joe wouldn't say this, but this is a game that they would have lost last year. And we've had a lot of games this year where they've played a certain way, where they put themselves in positions and predicaments that last year's team would not have been able to navigate their way out of. Whereas this team, not only are they able to kind of get back into the game, but they're able to go ahead and win. And in some instances, win going away. This was a game that they would have absolutely caught an L last year in, but they found a way to do it. And I give, the mental toughness that Joe talks about, that is important. That it is important that these guys be challenged and forced to really lock in mentally, because that 19-point lead that Detroit had at the half was down to about 12 points in like 3 or 4 minutes, and it was down to single digits in like 5 or 6 minutes. And at the end of the quarter, it was tied up. I mean, they were able to methodically get back into the game, and they didn't seem pressured. They didn't seem rushed. They didn't seem over anxious. They were just simply started balling out, not making turnovers, making shots, doing what they've been doing all season long defensively. And Detroit did what Detroit has been doing, unfortunately, for the last couple of months, and they wilted under the heat and pressure that good teams put on them. Well, they did.
I give them a little credit. They were down 6, the final minute of regulation or final 2 minutes, and they did come back to tie it. Yeah. But they've also found a way to lose, which I think happens when you're a losing team. It starts to become your identity.
Right.
I think we got Josue joining us in a minute, but before we do, I want to give a shout out to our great sponsors. First one of which is FanDuel. Guys, you can get $150 in bonus bets when you place a winning $5 money line bet at FanDuel.com/Boston. We're coming down to the end of the NFL season. There's a game on right now, Browns Jets. Flacco is showing him to be.
Wow.
I think Flacco might be elite, Sherrod. I think we're
Could
still
he-
having that debate
Could
after all these
Flacco
years.
could he be the comeback player of the year and do it in just a month? I mean, dude comes off the scrap heap, throws for 300 yards, not once, not twice, but 3 consecutive games, and I think he's over 300 now already for this one. There'll be 4 in a row.
He was like 220 at like halftime.
Well, the craziest part about Flacco is that when he was in Baltimore, you couldn't get him to throw for 200 yards a game. It seemed like, and now all he does is give you 3 notes.
And that's without Cooper tonight. So
right,
the Browns are doing their thing. If you bet Browns again, if you took that $5 and you bet it on the Browns to win against the Jets, it's looking good. It's not over yet. There's another quarter to play, but I think they've doubled up on the Jets, and the Jets are the Jets. So that one's probably as good as over. So you would have got $150 in bonus bets, but that's okay. There's another slate of games. We got Saturday games. We got Sunday games. It's the fantasy football championships for just about everybody. So if you want to hedge if you're in the finals and you want to toss a couple bucks on a game or two, go over to FanDuel.com/Boston, place your $5 bet. And if a money line bet, guys, it's got to be a money line bet. And if you win that, you'll get $150 in bonus bet. So thank you to FanDuel, great friend of the show. And then we cannot forget HelloFresh, Sherrod, HelloFresh.com/CLNS free. And that would give you a free breakfast for life, Sherrod. I know you're a breakfast guy. You grew up eating Wheaties, but I'll tell you what, HelloFresh's breakfast is going to do a lot more for you.
They got some amazing options, and if you're not like a big breakfast foodie person, the smoothies, yes,
okay,
yes. I mean, HelloFresh has got some great options for you, great options. So
love that.
Can't go wrong with them.
You want to, So again, it's farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients, seasoned recipes delivered right to your doorstep, so you don't have to fight. There's nothing worse than fighting, like especially at the holidays, fighting through people at the grocery store. Just trying to get your eggnog or your prime rib, your steaks. Just take as least amount of trips as you can. Go do your holiday shopping once and worry about the meals. Let HelloFresh worry about your meals for you. They just deliver it straight to your door. So again, that's pretty much all I have to say about HelloFresh. We use it. We love it. Get it. It's easy. You get home from a late night at work. Maybe you want to sneak in a gym session. You don't have time to go cook all this stuff. HelloFresh does the work for you. They give you all the ingredients. So go to HelloFresh.com/CLNS free. Use the code CLNS free and get free breakfast for life. I know Bobby is like swimming in muffins from his free breakfast. Josue, I want to say that Josue is a big breakfast guy, but we'll bring him on. We'll let him give us his word. Josue, you a big breakfast guy?
Huge breakfast guy, man. Classic breakfast. Give me some eggs, some toast, a little bacon.
Absolutely. Yeah, easy on the toast, easy on the carbs, but we like eggs. We're pro eggs here. Josue,
big time.
We are also.
If you don't like eggs, you're weird.
If you don't like eggs, you are weird. Put that on Josue's gravestone.
First thing I ever cooked myself. I cooked for myself.
Still probably the only thing, right?
It's one of like 10 things.
That's
honestly.
like my dad. If my dad ever has to cook his own dinner, it's just eggs. Like we just know eggs.
Yeah, once I had that down, it was one of those things where
come
like
up with like how he actually wanted it, but it's like no, like you just that's the only choice. So
oh yeah, man.
Different versions, sunny side up, over. Anyways, we'll go on and on about eggs. Josue.
Yeah, I do a whole podcast on some eggs, but yeah, good idea, Jimmy. Let's keep it moving.
Celtics in overtime tonight. We've been hitting on all the key players. We're gonna get to them all, but just your overall thoughts on how this game sort of unfolded. Slow start, different team in the second half. I'm sure you were there for. I imagine you might have been there for Missoula, and if not,
yeah,
for
sure.
The locker room. So, what did those guys have to say?
Missoula, man, one of the quotes that stuck with me that I liked what he said was in this game, and I think this should go for any championship caliber team. Like, your feelings have to be fleeting. Like, you can't stay in your feelings, 19-point deficit, history is on the line here for the Detroit Pistons, and the Celtics didn't have time for that. They had to focus, they had to regroup, and that's exactly what they did in the second half. So I like how Joe Mazzulla worded that, and eventually talking about how he showed these guys examples of not executing hard enough on defense. You know what I mean? Like the type of effort that the Detroit Pistons, obviously a team that's desperate for a win right now is gonna give you all they got in that first half, and that certainly was the case. But the Celtics just kind of going through their offense, not with enough force, especially on the defensive end of the floor. So what he had to say at halftime certainly sparked his team to play the right way. But guys like Tatum and Porzingis, man, they took it to another level. And if you ask me, Tatum getting it done on both ends of the floor, probably one of his more impressive performances of the season, if you ask me, just because of how much he had to do and the way he did it. It wasn't any panic mode. And yeah, there were certain stretches where you didn't like the way they were sort of handling their offensive execution, especially when they were the way they started that overtime. People got a little worried in here, but for the most part, they made the right choices, especially getting Porzingis going in the paint, exploring mismatches, just knowing how to read the defense, which is something that he's been talking about for weeks. And the fact how, you don't go into a game saying, I got to do this one thing. You wait to see how things play out, and then you react, which has been the case for Tatum as he continues to progress in that regard as a leader, essentially. I mean, the Celtics team doesn't win this game without that type of leadership. And this is that game where I feel like Tatum is one of those games where we'll be pointing to months.
It's a Tatum game for you.
Months from now, we'll be pointing at Tatum. Well, in terms of his leadership, for sure. I mean, Porzingis was Porzingis is the player of the game for sure. But the way Tatum led in this, man, like you couldn't have asked for more. 5 steals on defense, man. He was everywhere.
Dude, 5 steals on a team that was basically saying, here you go, Merry Christmas. This was a post-Christmas.
They got comfortable in the first half. Yeah, that's true.
Well, here's the thing about this game. Tatum had a great second half. I will not take anything away from that. But part of the reason why they weren't very good in the first half was because of Jason Tatum.
That's true. The halftime thing. That's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, this was Tatum, the Celtics as a team. They were completely different in the second half. They were a better team. They looked like the best team in the NBA in the second half. That's why they were able to take a 19-point halftime deficit and literally wipe it all away in one quarter. And the thing about it, in the third quarter, they played really well. But they were by no means near flawless in their play in that quarter. And to me, that was the scary part about this game. The Celtics played a little bit better than they did in the first half, and they wiped out a 19-point deficit. The one thing they did that was significantly different was turnovers. They just didn't turn the ball over as much. Tatum, as we all know, is a big turnover guy. He's a big points guy. He gets a lot of assists now, gets a lot of rebounds. He also gets a lot of turnovers. When he is being efficient and impactful without turning the ball over, this team is scary good. And I thought that he showed glimpses of that in the second half, more glimpses of that in the second half, certainly than we saw in the first. But when I think back to this game, I think back to Porzingis' play, obviously. I think back to Derek White at the start of the fourth quarter where Tatum and Porzingis were on the bench and Derek White was carrying them offensively. And to me, Tatum was like maybe the third guy in terms of impact in this game. I thought Porzingis, Derek White, and then Tatum. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. Derek White was huge in that overtime, but why did he get so many open looks? Because the Detroit Pistons kept collapsing on Tatum. And I feel like he was making, whether it was the hockey assist or making the direct assist, he was making the right play. I felt like he didn't. Yes, you look at his box score and the way he shot the ball. It was cold. It was ice cold at times. However, he impacted the game in other ways. I just think it's one of those games that's going to stand out for sure. But yeah, Porzingis is the player of the game. But I don't think you wipe away that comeback in the first 6 minutes of that third quarter.
That third quarter, yeah, that
without
was
Tatum.
For sure.
Tatum right out of halftime, he just is like it clicked. It's second half Tatum, what we've been talking about all season long. I mean, look, these guys combined for 23 points in that third quarter, 11 for Tatum, 12 for Porzingis. I mean, yeah, they both played a part, but I feel like it really did come down to Tatum's leadership because that's what is going to happen. That's bound to happen, especially in a game where you don't have Jaylen Brown.
This is the thing about Tatum, though, and I'm gonna give it off to Jimmy after this, and I'm gonna leave it be. Tatum is so good that on a game like this where he was really good in the second half, that's not his top level. There are so many more levels that Tatum has the ability to reach that we did not see in the second half. And he was good in the second half. I'm not saying he sucked. He was good. But Tatum is better than what we saw in the second half. And that's my issue with him. On opportunities and nights like this where you're the best team in the league and you're playing the crappiest team in the league, you don't give them any signs of hope that they can play with you if you're the best player on the best team. This was pretty good Tatum we saw in the second half. I don't need pretty good Tatum can come back and beat Detroit and it go to overtime. Really good Tatum, great Tatum. Great Tatum drops 45 points in them, and this game is never less. Their lead never dwindles to less than 10, 12 points. Mm-hmm. That's what great Tatum would have done. This was pretty good Tatum, but great Tatum is what I was hoping to see, especially with Jaylen Brown out.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I think.
How about smart Tatum, Sherrod? You know,
I think he's always smart.
A year ago, he's trying to put this team on his back, and obviously, yeah, you don't have Porzingis, which is
I was going to say the talent's a little different than from a year ago.
It's a big factor. Drew Holiday was big in this one as well. You know, those guys, but having the knowledge to not only use those guys, but in the heat of the moment, when the game is not it wasn't on the line, but there was a lot of pressure. Obviously, Celtics don't want to drop this one, and I felt like he took on that pressure and made the right decisions when it mattered, and then got Porzingis going. Other guys got going as well, but it wasn't one of those things where he's like, okay, now give me the ball back. I got to close this thing out. No, he kept reading the defense and he kept, making the right critical decisions at times that got other guys going.
He was pretty good.
I think
smart Tatum.
I think there's two halves to Tatum like tonight, and they're just like kind of like it was the Celtics, and it makes sense. He's going to lead the team, whether people like it or not. He's going to be the leader of this team. As great as Derek White's playing, and a lot of people can say that Derek White might be their best player right now, as effective and as amazing as Porzingis has looked on this team, all those things are great, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Tatum and then Brown. That's just the pecking order right now. That being said, with great power comes great responsibility, and it's Tatum's responsibility to not allow his team to come out as flat as they did, as sloppy as they did. The Detroit Pistons, 27 losses in a row, we're out there working twice as hard as the Celtics were.
Facts, my dog.
Thank you. And the Celtics.
You knew that's a real one. You knew he was listening to you on that one.
Even if he wasn't, I'll take it. But I give the Celtics credit for snapping out of it, and something that Mazzulla had said to them, basically. And Josue, we played a clip of it already. Not the back and forth, but the conversation between him and Gary about this game not really meaning anything for them, or that wasn't what he said, but the point was,
but
it meant everything to the Pistons, right, and it wasn't really anything to get out of it for the Celtics. But the way the Celtics came out, put themselves in that hole, forced them to dig down deep and find something within themselves to make that comeback. And I think, yes, Tatum was a big part of that in that third quarter. Then you had Derek White contributing later in the game, and obviously in overtime, you had Porzingis. Horford hit a huge three in that corner that had everybody fired up. And Holiday was just Holiday, solid, did the best he could out there on defense, as he always does. Cunningham had a great game, and I think, they probably let him a little too open at points, and to Cunningham's credit, he hit those shots, and it was one of his probably best shooting nights of his career. But you got to give Tatum the criticism, but you also have to at least acknowledge that it wasn't like they just completely threw in the towel in that second half. They staged a really great comeback against a bad team that was susceptible to being punched, and they punched them enough times where they started to stumble. A better team, Sherrod, the Celtics don't get that chance. They don't get that opportunity. And I think that was probably in the back of their minds that they, we can turn it on at some point.
Yeah, but against a team like, if you played the way they played in the first half, if you play like that against a team like Milwaukee, for example, you're going to lose by 6 or 7. Because you're
going to be down by 30 at halftime. That's what.
Right. You'll lose that game against a team like Philadelphia. You'll probably lose that game, although, maybe not.
If Maxey goes off, how about that?
Right. But the point is that there are very few teams that you can spot them 19 points lead in the first half and wipe that lead out in the third and go into basically the fourth quarter, started from zero. I just don't think you should put yourself in that position, in that predicament. And I get the point that Joe Mazzulla is making about building mental toughness, because that is important. And you need to have some games where you don't play your best and you put yourself in a bad predicament and you got really one or two choices. You either you either find a way to fight out of that hole and emerge victorious, or you just keep getting your ass kicked and go home with that fat L. And they chose to fight, and they fought back, and they got the win, and that's great. But I just think that you don't need to exert more energy than you should. This is the worst team in the NBA, and they took your ass to overtime in your building. I'm sorry, but the worst team in the NBA should not be taking the best team in the NBA to overtime in their building. It can be a close win. We can go for it, but overtime?
Yeah. No, it should not have gotten to that point. And in the first half, got to give the Celtics fans credit. They let the Celtics hear it. We're going to go to a bite here from Porzingis, and I think this might come up.
Good for them.
It was unbelievable. It's like I love the contrast from, especially the atmosphere from the first to second half, and I think the best part about it is it's not as much maybe about us, making the shots or not, but just us playing hard, and that's what the fans appreciate, and that was really cool to see.
So Celtics fans who,
that's right. Tell him, Chris Stapps, a win's a win.
Oh yeah, I think what Porzingis
was like, guys, I had 6 points at halftime, right?
Fans are going to call the Celtics out on their bullshit if they're at the game,
exactly,
and they're losing the way they're losing. And
that's why they were booing. There was boos in here.
That's exactly why they were booing. And
they should.
Porzingis essentially is
one guy was pissed,
tipping his cap to them and saying, "We hear you, and we're going to have to come out differently and turn those boos around." And to their credit, they did. Josue, speaking of Porzingis. Just a really all-around great game from him. Probably their most consistent player tonight, I would say. But again,
definitely,
there were obviously in and out in tonight's type of game because it was so different. But again, 35 points from him. Just you see him after the game, he's all smiles. We talked about it earlier in the show. It just seems like a guy that I think Sherrod said what was the word you used, Sherrod? Recalibrated.
Yes, the recalibrated.
Yeah.
Recalibrated, revived.
I think I think so. Yeah, I think it's because of this role and obviously the success and the way the Celtics team is playing. I mean, he's never had this type of success in the NBA level, and he's a huge part of it. And I think he knows that as the year progresses. Whether it's the win in LA, what we saw in the second half, where things just really started to turn around when they started to throw the ball inside, or whether it was in this one, just the fact that they kept running the offense through him, and I felt like it just drew up mismatches down low that they were able to, obviously take advantage of and chip away at this lead as quickly as they did. Now, give Detroit Pistons credit, obviously, because by the end, they obviously had to keep fighting in order to force overtime. So you credit them for that. But man, Porzingis just provides so many obstacles for opposing teams, I feel like, and especially down the stretch. It's like they stay consistent, they stay steady, poised. It doesn't waver. And a lot of those rebounds that they were giving up before, overtime, they were starting to regroup in those last 3 minutes before the Detroit Pistons were about to make it a 2-possession game. So I just feel like all that is so it's such an advantage for the Celtics team when you have someone like that on your side who's obviously been not criticized but somewhat he's taken a lot of criticism throughout his career if you think about it, but the last couple of years he's kind of been out of that limelight. So I just feel like that smile he still can't wipe it off his face after Christmas and after a win like this where he was the guy. I'm not surprised that he said what he said. I just think he's just taking it all in, this experience, and playing for a championship caliber team like this. It's very overwhelming, but in a good way for him.
What's the if you had to pick one reason, Sherrod, that we're seeing this version of Porzingis, or the biggest reason, what would it be?
I think it would be the position and role that he's asked to play now. When he was in Dallas, when he was in New York, it was like, we are going to lean on you heavily every single night.
Right.
You have to be really good every single night for us to be really good. Here in Boston, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum are probably going to be better than you most nights. We're going to look to them carry us more times than not. But every now and then, we're going to need to ride your back. We're going to lean on you. We're going to treat you like the max salary player that you are.
Mm.
And Porzingis, I think embraces that role. It's like being told that every now and then we're gonna have to have you run the department, but for most of the time you're just gonna be employer with employee ID 627244. And he's just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna get like manager money, but be a worker more times than not. I can do that. And on nights like this, they needed him to be New York Porzingis, Dallas Porzingis, that guy that we went to down the stretch consistently to help us win this game. And to his credit, he did that. Now, the other reason why he's so much more comfortable in this role is because even when he's asked to be the centerpiece, he's got so much talent around him that he can play off of that talent, and that talent can play off of him, which will make his job easier. So for Porzingis, you are literally in basketball nirvana right now.
Right.
Everything you could possibly want as a player, you're getting. You're getting max money. You're getting a great team with little to no pressure on a night in, night out basis. But every now and then, they're going to lean on you to be that man, to be that guy. And you're like, okay, I can do that against the worst team in the NBA. Yeah, I can do that. So again, if you're wondering why he's always smiling, think about all those factors I just gave you: money, less pressure, great team.
Right. Some people.
Damn, man, Sherrod really hates the Detroit Pistons. Jeez.
No, Sherrod's got all love.
You've gone everywhere. You've almost called them a damn G League team, man. You're like, this is
They're bad,
Detroit Pistons. Yeah,
Listen,
they're pretty bad.
Sherrod remembers the glory days, man.
That's the thing. See, Josue, I have the perspective of being in Detroit when they were balling. They would roll up into Boston and actually have a chance to win, and it wouldn't be a shock if they did. Those days are gone.
Sherrod's like, yo, Chauncey Billups not walking through that door.
Nah, Rip Hamilton ain't walk through that door. Nah, Eldon Campbell ain't even walking through that door. Man.
Elton Campbell.
Come on.
I want to put this comment up because
that was a great championship team, man.
I do think it's interesting, and I was thinking this similarly. How would the narrative change tonight if the Celtics lost this game? Let's say that they lose in whether it's regulation or overtime, they don't pull it off.
Tatum's not a leader. Why
didn't
they execute better? It would have fell all on Tatum's shoulders.
Yeah, it would have been a great game for Porzingis wasted.
Yeah, exactly. You guys wasted that.
But would there have been any sort of cause for concern that this team lacks the? I mean, it would have been embarrassing. No, that's obvious. It would have been super embarrassing for them to lose. The best team in the league losing to a historically bad team, and there would have been no excuse, none, all that stuff, and it would have been. I'm sure around the league they would have been laughed at and everything. But is there would there have been anything more to it, or what if we just said shots weren't falling, Celtics didn't show up, they took their opponent too lightly, and would we say, well, listen, they still lack that killer mentality? Is that something that we would be concerned about?
I wouldn't be concerned about it. To me, the bigger issue would have been they simply didn't take this team seriously. They did not take them seriously. And I don't care what – and there's a part of human emotion where that's expected. When you are at the top of the mountain in terms of NBA teams and you're looking at this team that they're not even in the valley. They're like in the mud below the valley. That's what the Pistons are right now. They're not even on the radar. They're that bad. I mean, playing game, that's like the ceiling for them at this point, which is sad. But I think it's a very realistic emotion to take them lightly, but to take them so lightly that you actually get your ass kicked at home and you have a winning streak that extends more than 20 games at home snapped by the worst team, not just the worst team in the NBA, but the worst team historically in the NBA.
That would have been the issue, yeah.
That would have, yeah. Again, if it were just a bad, like if this were like the Washington Wizards or another team that's near the bottom of the standings, it would have been like, okay, bad loss. You didn't take them seriously, no big deal. But to lose to a Detroit team at this point, it's And I hope that it was bad. I think the next game is that they're going at Toronto, I believe, over the weekend. So hopefully they can break the snide because if they play the way they did tonight against Toronto, they'll win that game. They'll win that game by like 10.
We get a back-to-back on our hands, Sherrod. So you're not going to have Horford tomorrow.
Yeah, and Toronto was sitting, they're here in Boston, just chilling, waiting for their game tomorrow. But see, this is the weird thing about this damn Celtics team, though. these are the games where conventional wisdom tells you they're going to have a tough time. But conventional wisdom, this Celtics team tells me that they're probably going to blow the Raptors out the water and beat them by like 15 or 20 points. Because think about it. You played a really good playing Sacramento team without your best player. Not only did you beat them, you beat the brakes off of them. They stole your lunch money for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And you came back in 7th grade.
Damn, yo, that's the worst bully of all time.
Damn, dude. You're giving me PTSD right now, man.
He followed you to middle school? Damn.
I was like, Jimmy, you okay, Jimmy? You
Damn,
okay?
dude, I can't. Yeah, trigger warning, man. Anybody watching at home that went through that.
But listen,
Jimmy's like, just wait till I get
he
taller.
went to 7th grade. He went to
Yeah,
7th
man.
grade. You still have-
Where my growth spurt kicks in?
Yeah,
But they beat the
narrator.
crap out of
They
them
did
without
not.
their best player, and that's I would not be surprised if they beat Toronto handily tomorrow. Would not shock me at all.
All right.
Well, that's how you're supposed to bounce back, right? If you're a
Yeah.
championship caliber team, and even though that one, if you ask me, was obviously off of the Golden State Warriors loss, where you lost in overtime, you let Steph Curry do the sleeping thing, which he hasn't done in a while. So yeah, you probably had that feeling. Little extra juice going into that one, but you should have somewhat of the same thing here. Again, you didn't lose, but you escaped with a win here in overtime against the Detroit Pistons team. Now you can regroup. You see what happened. The story of two halves, as people, as coaches like to say, and you're going to go in with that same energy, especially on the second night of a back-to-back. It really wouldn't shock me, Sherrod. If that happens.
What who'd you talk to in the locker room tonight? What'd they have to say? What was the vibe?
Man, I hopped out of Missoula and I came straight here.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you snuck in there or what. Okay, so we got Bobby in the locker room. I just texted Bobby to see if he's going to make an appearance on the show. We're gonna go a little bit longer, but we do have a back-to-back tonight, and this game will be gone and forgotten in less than 24 hours because that's how the NBA season rolls. That's probably how the Celtics want it to be, and certainly how the Pistons want it to be, I'm sure, too. I don't know where they go next, but it's going to be a long season for them. Josue, you haven't talked about White much tonight, but me and Sherrod went in depth about him a little bit earlier, and just the level of basketball he's playing right now. And Amit took the liberty to slide All-Star.
Derek All-Star White. Okay.
Derek All-Star White. And again, this is a game where it's just another sort of, I think, highlight. If the Celtics are going to put together a little package and trying to convince these coaches around the league to vote for their guy, they might find a couple clips in here. And again, slow start to the game for him. For whatever reason, I hope somebody asked him. He changed his sneakers at halftime, and I was watching the first half, and it looked like he was falling out there. I don't know if the grips on those red sneakers weren't any good, but he hopefully burned him at halftime. He came out with a new pair, and he was just a different player.
Yeah, man. He changed things, especially in that overtime. I just feel like as the game progresses, teams tend to forget about Derek White, And what I mean by that is the sneaky steals in the backcourt or the offensive rebounding or the backdoor cuts. I mean, that was inexcusable. That layup in overtime, or was it overtime in the fourth quarter? I think it was overtime. The and one, like those opportunities that are there for him, like he's seeking those, and that's just something that I feel like is just all the credit to him, obviously, in his progression as a player, but also adapting to new guys like Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Obviously, impact guys are going to impact the offense, but he's always going to find a way to make his impact. And I just think this is another example of that. But he's been doing this for since before the West Coast road trip. So I just think this type of focus right now, I don't see it going away anytime soon. Derek White has just been, call him the X factor if you want, but sometimes he's the reason why the Celtics are able to survive and come out with these wins.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Derek White right now.
Joe said your halftime conversation was you guys agreeing that was your worst half of your career in the first half, then trying to laugh it off. So did you agree with that statement, and then how did you laugh it off in the second half?
Yeah, he didn't even have to tell me. I knew that. I don't know, it was just anything that could go wrong was going wrong for me there, and it was just a rough first half. So just take that 15 minutes to kind of reset again and get back after it.
Hey, he's right. It was ugly. I mean, and it showed. And also, Sherrod, you said you wanted to see what it's like, what the Celtics are like when Derek White's not out there. You saw what they were like when he's really not Derek White, and it was not pretty the way that first half went. And so, good on them for figuring it out, and I guess switching the sneakers up. Maybe that really was it.
If that's your story, Jimmy, you're gonna stick with it.
Jimmy's no. He's just happy that he's the only one talking about this. Like it's like, yo, you guys all missed it, but
no, Scally mentioned it.
Sneak by me.
Scal mentioned it in the podcast. I was pissed because I thought I was the only one who mentioned it, but he probably just saw my tweet. To be honest, if we're being honest.
There you go.
Josue, I asked you a question. I'm not going to tell you what his answer was, but
what question?
Let's say the Celtics can send 3 players to the All-Star game. Who are your 3 players?
Oh man, you're killing me, man. You're gonna make me
on the spot right now. If you don't answer, none of them go. So
I gotta leave my boy White out the mix, man. I'm sorry. I would love to see it, but okay, this is my take on this whole Derek White All-Star thing.
Wow.
If one of the top guards in the
hates
East,
Derek White.
Don't send that out there, that narrative. If one of these top guards in the East cannot make it, and I'm talking about the Halliburtons, I'm talking about Maxey's, I'm talking about Brunson, then Derek White should get his name called. But I just right now, if the All-Star game was this weekend, I just think he can't beat out those guys, But there's still time. There's still plenty of time, But the 3 is, for me, is you already know, it's Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis. Porzingis is having one heck of a season, and I think all 3 of those guys deserve All-Star selections.
Do you go? Oh, sure. What you got?
No, I was just gonna say, Josue, those were very astute selections you made there. I'm
Who are you gonna leave out of those guards, man? There's too many top tier guards in the East right now, man.
To your point, Josue, I think what'll wind up happening if the Celtics continue to just kind of pull away from the rest of the pack in the East, it'll put it'll put the coaches who vote for the reserves in the precarious position of deciding, am I going to go with this really good guard on this mediocre team, or am I going to go with the glue guy on the team with the best record in the NBA? And I think they're going to go with the mediocre guard or the really good guard on the mediocre team. And I think Derek White becomes basically the first player picked if someone is unable to go.
Exactly what I was trying to say.
Because remember Al Horford, that was one of the last times Al Horford was named to an All-Star team. That's exactly what happened.
And people were pissed. Remember that, Sherrod?
Yeah,
he's only putting up 16 and 7 or whatever his numbers were at the time. And it's just
It was the All-Star game in Toronto. I remember because Al had this, I think, Caribbean cruise plan, and then he turned around and had the cold ass Toronto.
Are you serious?
I said, damn.
I didn't know that. Wow.
If I were Al, I might have just said thanks, but no thanks for that particular.
I got the knee pain too. Yeah.
Yeah. But
look, I didn't even mention Donovan. I didn't even mention Donovan Mitchell, guys. There's a lot of guards out there.
It's not. Yeah, it's an uphill battle. I think the argument is just whether
Damian Lillard. Now he's in the East. Jeez.
And don't forget your teammate Jalen. I mean,
so is he a guard this year, Sherrod?
See,
how does that work? Because he shouldn't be. Not this year with Drew in the mix. Drew and White is the backcourt. That's interesting.
It's weird, and
one of them is because he's always been a guard. That's
right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I hope that he's a forward because that gives a guy like Derek a shot, but it also might impact a guy like Porzingis if Jalen's a guard.
If he's a guard, that's true.
Yeah. So someone might get screwed.
I'm trying to look to see if
which happens every year, right? It's just too many great.
For some reason, I think Jalen is a guard. I still think they have Jalen as a guard though. For some reason,
I mean, I'm sure they got the ballots out, so yeah, they probably do because he's always been listed as a guard.
I'm looking at the ballots now. I'm doing it on my damn phone. It's freaking annoying.
No, but so Josue,
what's up?
What else jumped out to you about this game that we haven't hit on yet?
I want to ask Josue one more thing, Sherrod.
Okay,
because you went a little bit further in your response, Sherrod, on the All-Star debate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and Brown is a forward guy, so Brown's going to be.
Yeah, I think this is the first year he's listed as a forward.
He's a forward this year, so Josue, give me your order of All-Stars on the Celtics this year from 1 to 3. Since you say 3 are going to go
1 to 3. Ooh.
Who's first? Who's your second option? Who's number 3?
Number one, I'm gonna go with Jason Tatum.
Okay.
I know everyone in the comment section doesn't like him today, but he's still number one, guys. Number two, number two, I gotta go. Man, I gotta go Jalen, especially what he's been doing the last couple of weeks. But that could change in a month and a half. You know, Porzingis is like right there. Like it's not even like it's like
A
that
lot can
much of a
change.
difference. Yeah, a lot can change. But all three better be heading to Indianapolis, man.
I think if all three stay in the court, I think that's an automatic that they will go, all three will be going there.
Yeah, and right, and Porzingis hasn't missed enough games to where I think that'll be an issue. I don't think that's going to be an issue,
which is good. Yeah.
What do you guys think of the bench tonight? I mean, there was a stretch.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, Josue, why don't you start us off with a little bench talk since we haven't talked about them at all tonight. But there was some mixed production out there as we've seen in the past. I mean, the real thing that stands out to me was the 3 straight misses from from Pritchard.
I know, but he made everything else. Oh, almost everything else after that.
I know.
Right?
Of course, I'm only thinking about the ones he missed. But overall, Josue, just anybody stand out to you tonight out there, or just in general?
I mean, yeah, a couple of guys stood out, but I wouldn't say that they had a huge, didn't have fingerprints on the win. But I thought that there were times where Pritchard got a couple of shots going that kind of woke the team back up again. Like, hey guys, let's keep going here. Especially in that dreadful first half, where the offense was just not executing and just making just terrible reads. If you ask me, man, there's some of these turnovers where I felt like they were just passing it into double teams, and between Derek White and Drew Holiday, they each had a couple of ugly turnovers, and Tatum chucking 3-pointers. I feel like Pritchard kind of wasn't chucking threes. He got a couple to go his way that kind of like switched the momentum a bit. I know it wasn't a whole lot. Oh, we played 20 minutes today, but I like Keita's energy, man. I just think he's someone that just impacts the paint, the rebounding, the second chance opportunities, I just think he's going to continue to progress in that regard. I don't know if he's ready for that to get off that two-way, but he could be. This game wasn't exactly one of those convincing performances, but he's certainly trending in the right direction. But those are a couple of guys that stood out to me with the second unit. Al Horford having to start in this one with Jaylen Brown out, so they were a bit thin. But yeah, I thought a lot of it, in the second half, it was the stars that really carried the load.
This is not who Bobby wanted to be talking about to start the show.
Not who I expected.
Nah, Bobby, you're an hour and 10 minutes in. We're at the Keita portion of the show.
No, I wasn't expecting to see him tonight. Josue knows. I'm sure he mentioned that I asked pregame.
Bobby turns to me and verbatim. He goes, "Joe lied. He lied to us."
So, Bobby, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
So you spoke to Joe and asked, take everybody
first question out of pregame. Go ahead, Bobby.
Ask Joe pregame who's going to prevail going forward, these two. And
which you guys know means, Coach, what's up with Luke Cornett not playing the other game?
Yeah.
that's what that translated to.
Yeah, and Joe basically said, Nemeas had a great run of games in the West Coast trip, so we want to keep him going. And he obviously didn't play great in that Christmas game, so he didn't specifically commit to Luke playing tonight, but said he's gonna play. So you figure that meant as long as Cornett's healthy, he's going to be ahead of Keita in the rotation. But Cornett gets another DNP, Keita gets another 20 minutes here. So obviously they're trying to push him and help him figure out some of the struggles he's having now in terms of fouling and maybe some defensive lapses here or there. Just because of the upside, his offensive rebounding gives them some really nice plays in the first half of this game. And Joe did credit him, Brissett, Pritchard for keeping them in the game early. So I think they like what he's given them right now, and they want to see him build on some of the success he had. I mean, he averaged 10 and 10 through those first 3 games of the trip, Jimmy, which is pretty hard to believe for a guy. And Horford talked about it this morning, who they didn't think was as prepared to give this kind of production as he looks right now. So it's a tough balance. Again, I keep comparing it to that Tice Rob thing. And unlike Brad, who leaned on more of the safe choice, it looks like Joe wants to unlock something here, and he's going to deal with some of the struggles and mistakes to get him where he needs to go.
So we're going to do a quick reset since Bobby was kind enough to jump on with us. Bob, we'll let you get a few takes in before we all head to bed. We get another one tomorrow against Toronto. But before we do, Bobby, I mean, this was a bit of a wild game. I think it ended, obviously, with the Celtics win the way everyone thought that it would. But the way they got there was certainly interesting. Going down, was it 21 as much as in the first half? And then coming back for a 19-point halftime deficit. Take us through what the hell went wrong in that first half with the Celtics, what went right for Detroit, and what changes were made to sort of flip the script on this one at halftime.
I thought they got slowed down early. I thought they settled for jump shots when they weren't falling for them throughout the first half, particularly Tatum. I thought it was another rough start for Tatum, and everyone's going to be like, oh, he's getting on Tatum again. Great game in the end. But you look at the shooting right now, and it's just not there for him. So he is going to have to go to some of those post-mismatches. He is going to have to go to drives. And certainly the passing was there for him in a big way in this one, almost tying his career high, which is 12 with the assists. I think he finished this one with 10. So he adapted in different ways. He got off the ball again late. I know we talked about that on Christmas.
That's a season high 10, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bobby,
So
everyone hates Tatum tonight, by the way, but go on.
So this ended up being a good game for him in the end. But
Good half.
yeah.
And a career high, tied a career. Did you say that already? But he tied a career high five steals, by the way.
I thought he was both active.
They were giving him
involved.
away, Josue. You heard Sherrod.
You know,
I thought he
Sherrod
was
thinks
active.
Detroit's a G League team now, but
I thought he was active, involved, and when he needed to, stepped away from the play late, which was important too, because they let Derek White effectively close the fourth quarter on the ball. So I love the way he handled the game late. I think he deserves credit for it. Joe certainly gave him credit for being willing to stand in the corner and let White and Porzingis play their two-man game there. So I'm fine with this one. You obviously saw how they missed Jalen too. And Joe talked a little bit pregame about how they kind of reinvented the offense on the West Coast trip to play faster, to get into their sets earlier. You know, Derek was saying that they want to be into their sets by like the 19-second mark on the shot clock, which, this has been one of the slower paced teams in the league this year. So being able to do that on the fly was incredibly effective out there. And I think in the second half, they were able to do that more consistently, especially the third quarter. I mean, you have to play at a pretty high pace to overcome a 19-point deficit in less than a quarter.
So you're crowning Tatum tonight, 31 points on 31 shots. You're going to give him the game ball?
Yeah, I think just because of how he responded. I mean, he was...
Sherrod, can you believe these guys?
Yes.
They must have had a different view of the game than we did on TV tonight. I don't know what happened.
Listen, Jimmy, I was as infuriated as you watching the first half.
John Zan is
you were
heated
texting
right now.
me being like, Tatum. Now you wanna give him MVP.
He did what it took to win the game, and certainly others had big impacts, but he allowed them to do that by getting out of the way late.
But this
What?
These guys,
Bobby.
Bobby.
Credit now for getting out of the way.
These guys don't like adversity or something. I don't know. Adversity.
What I like Josue is I like really good Tatum, and that was not what we saw today. We saw pretty good Tatum. This was Tatum in a pretty good game.
The way he got out of the way.
Well, the way Jimmy, the reason this game went into overtime was because Tatum was pretty good. He wasn't great. He wasn't good. And anyone who thinks he was good, you clearly didn't.
He was pretty good, but he wasn't good. Sorry.
There's a difference.
No, he wasn't good, Sherrod. But he did what they needed to do to win.
But here's my thing. I have a different level of expectations for Jason Tatum.
Yeah, where's the bar?
And that to me is where I think where we are parting ways. I expect him on a night when you're playing the worst team in the NBA in your building, riding a 27-game winning streak. I don't expect that game to go to overtime. I expect you to be better than you were so that this game does not go to overtime. The fact that you had to rally to get it to overtime, that's not good. The fact that you won the game in itself is pretty good, but not good.
Yeah, I think we can compartmentalize to some extent and say, well, here's what Tatum did really well in the third quarter, and yeah, he put his guys in a position.
He was awesome in the third.
He was.
But the first and second quarter, not so awesome.
Yeah, so I think that would be the knock.
Not so
tonight.
awesome.
Well, for the record, Porzingis is the player of the game. Just want to get that out.
I agree.
All right, Josue says Porzingis. Bobby, we've kind of gone around the horn here on Porzingis and White, but I'll start with you on Porzingis. Just Thoughts on him, not just tonight, but just, I guess, to this point in the season. I mean, we played the clip of him after the game. Just he's smiling ear to ear. He's talking about how the fans basically
First
are the
booze of
best.
the year.
Yeah, first booze of the year. But he was pretty much said they earned it, and they heard it, and they came out and they addressed it the only way that they could, which is to play differently.
Yeah, that had me reminiscing with Josue about the 2 years ago when there were pretty much booze every night here. So to have the first ones come practically last week of the year, that's pretty good. So yeah, they knew they stunk in the first half. Missoula said it too, and they had to come out and respond. And I talked to him a little bit about that pace stuff because you do always wonder why they can't get to that higher pace more consistently. And some of it comes down to not always getting satisfaction out of running the floor. You might not get the ball, you might not be able to get a shot off, you might not score. So it's tough to do consistently, along with the energy you need to expel to play at that kind of pace consistently. But I love how he's able to get involved with it. Of course, he had the final catch from Tatum down the floor in the finish that pretty much sent this place into a frenzy. So I say it every night. I'm just saying the same thing every night at this point. Like, I feel so lucky to be witnessing the season he's having. Like, it is special stuff. It feels like this is what he was supposed to be coming into the league. The stuff we're seeing him do night in and night out now. I thought he had some nice passes in this game too, but really it's just the aggressiveness. And that and one over Ivy, he's hitting those shots every time where he's flat-footed. He's
free throw line one.
Yeah, he's like at the free throw line, so he's like 15 feet away from the basket. A guy's right up underneath him, and in this case followed him, and he's still hitting these. And these were bad shots for Porzingis a year or two ago, and now he's just draining them with ease. So I'm just in awe. I really am. And yeah, you can ask for a little bit better rebounding, maybe the defense at times.
Yeah.
Leaves something to be desired. But offensively, he has changed this team.
Facts, my dog. And lastly, not lastly, but I definitely want to get your take on just Derek White. We played a clip of him basically saying he played the worst half of his career in the Celtics tonight, and then was able to turn things around in that second half there again, like some of the other guys. But his importance to the team, I mean, you can just see it night and day from half to half. And as we'll put up here again, and I should also note, I don't know if Josue and Bobby know this, we have officially added Derek White to the backer of our show.
The fans were clamoring for that.
Did we finally get Smart out of there? Wait, was that the problem?
Oh,
It is
wow.
official. I removed.
There will be no Marcus Smart slander, Josue.
No, I mean, he's not on the
kneecaps.
team anymore.
I will
Okay.
come for your kneecaps if you come after my boy Marcus Smart. Just letting you know
Listen, he's been on that banner. I think he's still on the YouTube one. I'm like, all right, guys, he's not on the team anymore.
I think this means we've
let me
officially
update that banner.
Yeah, we've officially
Come for your
moved on.
kneecaps, Josue, if you're
Now
not
that-
careful.
Now that we have White on the banner, but Bobby, just as this guy continues to make a case for All-Star consideration.
Yeah, he's close. I feel like I wrote about it on the site after the last game. I feel like he's probably one injury replacement away from being able to make this team. You think you're going to have the Brunsons and the Lillards, Halliburton, as well as maybe like Trae Young mixing in there, some of the bigger stats guys. But the impact here is becoming indisputable. And he's starting to add the stats to it too. Like if he keeps pushing closer to 20 points a game, Jimmy, that's probably in range for him to make it. You look at last year, it was another weaker year for the guard class, and that allowed Drew Holiday to sneak in at around 19, 20 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
So typically it's going to be the guys who are scoring well over 20 points a game. He's more in like that 16, 17 range for the year. But since December started, he's a steady 20 and 5. And I think those are all-star numbers when you add in the defensive impact too here. So he's going to be right on the edge, and it'll be an enormous accomplishment for a guy with his game to make it if he does here. And others have done it. Mostly centers, I feel like, are usually kind of the role guys. Horford's done it, of course, a couple times, once since being in Boston. So those guys can make it. It's much harder at the guard position where there's just so many massive scorers and big stat guys. And the fact that he's even in the mix there with, the Mitchells and the Youngs and the Lillards of the world there, it's a testament in itself, even if he does end up falling short there.
So that probably answers my question. I was going to ask you, you have three guys, three Celtics players to send to the All-Star game. Who are you sending?
I think
Let's
you
say-
send Porzingis.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
Porzingis is the guy.
I think you send Porzingis because of the front court.
So it's consensus. Sherrod, Josue, and Bobby are all leaving Derek White at home. If it's three guys, three Celtics players who are going.
I mean, it's no disrespect.
No, I know. I'm trying to frame it that way, but it is what it is. Like you said, it's the talent at the guard position.
You know how much I love Horford, and no
Oh,
one's
are you
going
going to send Horford?
No. I'm saying when he made the game.
I was about to say, what?
It's like, yo,
Three guys. He's like Cornette, Horford,
how are you about to finish
and,
this sentence?
Pritchard.
No, Lamar Stevens.
When he made the game, you weren't going to watch him set screens and make passes in the high post and shoot a three here or there. You'd rather have one of the more high flying up and down guys in the game. And listen, he could make it as an injury replacement very easily, I think. And then maybe you end up with 4, which I think is what the team's really trying to push for right now with all this campaigning. So that would be impressive. I think it'd be emblematic of what they've done in this first half. And again, my big takeaway from this game, Jimmy, is just how often early this season, the Charlotte game aside, they've avoided disastrous losses, because I thought those losses defined last year. Oklahoma City, Orlando 3 times, Indiana, all the way down the line, all those awful teams that they lost to last year. And this year, they really only have one truly bad loss in terms of the opponent that they lost to here. And as our guy Block said, the Clippers beat writer who came on and talked to us over the weekend after that game or before that game, the Celtics have been in every game they've played so far. They've had big leads in every game they've played so far, just about. All the losses they've played in, certainly. That's tough to do through like 30 games. And it says a lot about just how good this team is. I mean, who erases a 19-point deficit in one quarter? That's just crazy stuff.
The best team in the NBA when you play the worst team in the NBA. That's what you do. You can spot them 19 points and get it back in a quarter.
Here we go.
I know, still impressive
Yeah,
stuff.
just
going, man.
yes, Joe. We're back. We're
No,
back.
they did that in the 6 minutes, man. It wasn't even. I don't think we should say a quarter, but
Yeah,
I digress. I digress.
I do want to say. I do want to say something about your Pistons too, Sherrod. It's tough to watch.
My name is Gore, and I own the team. Like
I know Jimmy said that at least 3 times before we hopped on here, man.
Tell me about my team.
Sherrod's forever synonymous with the Detroit Pistons.
Once a Piston, always a Piston, Sherrod.
This is tough to watch because this isn't the 16 Sixers or the 11 Cavs or one of those teams that just had nothing. They have so much, and they have so many great players, and Cade especially. What a talent. And he really put it all on the line tonight to win this game and had them in position to do so. He had the shot to do so late, and he just front rimmed it. And
he also had to defend Tatum, man, which I thought was impressive.
And you know what?
A couple shots.
On top of it, he's talking after every single game and taking accountability for all these losses. And Monty said it pregame. Josue was in there. You're going to remember this in his career, but this is also probably going to be what pushes him to have an even better career than he would have otherwise had going through this, because I don't think anyone in NBA history has gone through anything quite like this early in their career. At least a guy this talented.
Well, we know that happened.
And you're gonna in the next day or so, the latest edition of the Big 3 NBA podcast will drop, and we have a conversation with James Edwards III, who covers the Pistons for The Athletic, and we talk about
What's up,
Cade.
James?
We talk about Cade and just how he has handled all of this losing, and just the impact James, who's pretty close to Cade, sees this having on his future going forward. And again, Cade has been incredibly mature in handling something that I don't think most players with his level of experience going through something like this would handle as well as he has.
31, 6, and 9 tonight with 3 steals and 2 blocks.
And this wasn't even the best that he has to offer. This was because remember, he pretty much the third quarter was a non-factor, was nowhere to be found. So I mean, basically, he got those stats for the most part in 2.5 quarters of play.
Yeah, I think he had 22 at half.
Yeah,
and he had a good fourth quarter.
He's
garbage 3 at the end, but
he's going to be a really good player in this league for a long time.
You just gotta kick that. You don't want that losing identity on this team right now, and like they believe they're gonna lose, so it's like that's where they're at. They need to get that win off their back, and I guarantee you, as soon as they do,
I thought it was gonna be tonight.
Right?
I didn't.
Well, when they went,
Even
the way that first half went, man,
When you go
I
up
started to
21,
think
you got to
so.
close it out.
I started to think so too, Sherrod.
No.
Celtics were not playing well at all.
dude, I don't. As much as I want to see Detroit get off the snide, I don't trust them fools. I don't trust them.
By the
And
way,
No.
I
at
tweet
half-
out this stat. Pistons offensive rebounding. They grabbed 41% of their misses in this game.
That was their best offense, the missed shot.
Which was in the 97th percentile of every offensive rebound performance this year. So that was going to be what would have killed the Celtics if they did lose here.
And I think at halftime, the Celtics, even down 19, they were only like a 3.5 or 4 point underdog.
Yeah.
Over on our good friends FanDuel's site. We'll give them a shout out at the end, guys. We're gonna probably wrap it here. We got another one tomorrow. I'll let, if anyone has any. Me and Sherrod, we probably have no more thoughts because we've been doing this for a bit. But Sherrod,
What, you guys been on for 90 minutes or something?
yeah, just about 90 minutes talking about this game. And we got another one tomorrow. But Josue, Bobby, you guys were there tonight. Bobby, you were in the locker room for a while. Is there someone you spoke to that you wanna divulge anything?
Yeah, I talked to Cade, and again, credit to him for being available after every single one of these losses, and not just giving one-liners or just being pissed and sulking. He was giving good answers, talking about how he's learning from this, how he's trying to keep the team together, and you do got to give credit to him again for what he's doing here. As far as Porzingis, who we talked to on the Boston side, he talked a lot about how frustrating it can be to watch a rebounding performance like this as fans. You're just like, grab the ball. What the hell? To quote him. So that was a struggle here, and they're going to have to do better with that. They're still experimenting with a lot of double big lineups, too. They went with Kata Porzingis in this one, which we hadn't seen yet, to go back to what we opened talking about there with the whole Kata conversation. So it's going to be interesting to see which double big lineup works out there. And, they try to close the half with Kata, too, which didn't go very well. So they're still trying to find front court combinations that work there. And as we get closer to the trade deadline, of course, that's probably going to be a position they try to address, is that 4 spot, and figuring out how they can put out consistent bench units with size out there, because it seems like that's what they want to do here. Despite, I saw a lot of fans were frustrated with the lineups tonight, but you have to experiment, you have to try some stuff, and they were doing that again here early, which I think was also part of why they went down by so much.
Facts, my dog. I agree with you. Josue. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts?
Final thoughts, man. Just start the game better than what we saw against the Detroit Pistons. I mean, listen, it's that type of approach against any team. It's not going to yield great results. And what I mean by that is, executing at a high level, reading the defense, not taking lazy shots. On the second night of a back-to-back, I mean, you have to have the energy to put forth the right effort on the defensive end of the floor, especially. And I think this is that team where, what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, where those defensive stops is what catapults the offense a lot of the time. And when that happens, you don't see these type of performances where they're up to 10 turnovers, by halftime or somewhere near that. That's just not what this team is about when they're playing their best basketball. So I think they turn things around, in the second night of a back-to-back, given what happened here tonight, given the fact that they could have, snapped that losing streak against the Detroit Pistons, which would have been a much different show here.
It would have been, yeah. It would have been like the OKC game or something last year.
But thankfully, Tatum's third quarter display, can we all agree on that? And along with Kristaps Porzingis going into domination mode, 23 points in that second half, 23 of his 31. Oh no, excuse me, 23 of his
35.
35, excuse me. In the second half. Or no, excuse me, 29, including the overtime, right? Just incredible stuff. He had 6 points at halftime. He's the man of the game for sure. And I just think this team, again, what Joe Mazzulla's been saying all season long, it's going to look different every time. And this was certainly a great example of that.
Sherrod, you got anything else?
Nope.
I got 3 words for Sherrod. I'll speak for Sherrod. 3 words. Pretty good Tatum. That was the theme for
Pretty
tonight.
good Tatum.
So
PGT.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to thank our great sponsors, FanDuel. Once again, guys, if you bet $5 money line bet, you get $150 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/Boston sign up. There's plenty of football left to bet on. We got a couple weeks before the end of the regular season, and then we have playoffs. So there's plenty of time to get your bets in. I think Bobby's trying to fight his way back on here. We'll see if he can before we leave. But we also got HelloFresh. We want to say thanks to HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com/CLNS free. Use the code CLNS free and get free breakfast for life. We've all done it. We love HelloFresh. Saves a lot of time doing your shopping. They put the ingredients together for you. It's fresh, farm to table food. Going into the new year, guys, you want to set some, goals for yourself. Why not start with your diet, your personal health situation. So HelloFresh is a good way to start, and this is what better way to start your day than with a nice breakfast. So thank you to HelloFresh, thank you to FanDuel, and thanks to everybody who hung around with us tonight. We had a lot of people check in with us, Sherrod, from the start. We had 1,700, I think, steady the whole way.
Nervous Celtics fan base tonight.
A lot of people couldn't sleep after that one.
Yeah.
They needed to think this one through a little bit. So hopefully we were able to do that. And
you know what else too, fellas? You know what else too? A lot of disappointed NBA fans. I felt like the hate was kind of real on Twitter today, guys. Yeah. I don't know, if the Celtics, this will make my day, this will make my year. It's like, all right, well, I guess the Celtics are still hated as much as most teams in the NBA.
Celtics have the target on their back for sure, especially this year.
I like it. Good. Yeah, I like it.
Good.
We'll be back tomorrow. We got the Raptors, and we will see you guys then in the final weekend of the year. Everybody enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll see you tomorrow.